today we are now joined with our special guest from the Northwest Side Housing Center. You've seen him on our Facebook live stream as well as an HD version where he's sitting on a panel with other people from Our Revolution as well as Representative Will Guzzardi. So James, can you please introduce yourself to our listeners and our people who are watching us on our Facebook live stream?
Sure. Good afternoon. My name is James Rudyk. I'm the Executive Director of the Northwest Side Housing Center. We're a nonprofit, community-based organization located in the Belmont-Cragen neighborhood of Chicago. Thanks for having me.
So essentially, now, thank you so much for joining Heartlands Media. So for our listeners and subscribers, can you tell them about the Northwest Side Housing Center and the purpose it serves in its local community and what it does for families there?
Sure, I'd be happy to. So the Northwest Side Housing Center mission is to engage, educate, and empower the community. We accomplish our mission really through two ways. One is programs and services that we provide, and second is through community organizing. Our programs and services are all free of charge and are provided in Spanish, Polish, and English. They're available to anyone in the city of Chicago or the state of Illinois, regardless of address, income, family status, family size, and our programs include foreclosure prevention, so we help homeowners who are losing their homes to foreclosure, most of the time because of the actions of the banks or a third party. We help individuals that are looking to buy a home for the first time, so if they're interested in buying and haven't before, we help walk them through the process. We help renters find an affordable place to rent, which we know is an increasingly challenging thing in the city here in Chicago. We also do general financial coaching, budgeting, credit counseling, and a variety of other programs for special populations. And then in terms of community organizing, we organize youth, parents, older adults, homeowners, and renters on quality of life issues ranging from affordable housing to safety to access to transportation to quality of our public schools. Any issue that residents bring up, we help organize on.
Now, I want to bring up a current event that actually happened some time ago on November 13th. Now, your organization, the Northwest Side Housing Center, held a press conference at the Northwest Home Equity Assurance Program office.
Correct.
Now, this has to deal with the fact that there has been around $10 million sitting in an account that is supposed to help homeowners. And apparently, some people knew about this program, many people have not heard about this program. And since the program was started, I believe, and just to add any kind of corrections if possible, it was started 28 years ago, none of the funding, and this is what I've been reading so far and researching, none of funding went to help the people. So here's a couple of questions I have in regards to this. How was this program started, and who is really responsible for it? And essentially also, what was the outcome of this press conference, and really what do you want to see done?
Yeah, thank you for bringing that up. So the Northwest Home Equity Assurance Program, or we just call it the Northwest Home Equity, was founded in 1988 to help prevent white flight. There's a program that was started both in the Southwest side and in the Northwest side, and both of them were started by homeowners that were concerned that as more black and brown people moved into their community that their property values would lower. Right. Therefore, they created basically a fund that is about $2.50 on the property tax bill of every home in a certain district, and the Northwest Home Equity Fund includes portions of the 29th, 30th, 31st, 36th, 38th, 39th, 40th, and 45th wards on the Northwest side. So basically the entire Northwest side of Chicago has part of the district, and the district taxes homeowners $2.50 each year. And if a homeowner sold back in the late 80s, early 90s, and their property was valued at less than what it was worth, the fund would pay them the difference if they opted into the program. So since 1988, our records show that there have been 3 payouts totaling about $50,000 total in 28 years or so of it being in existence. When we pull the 990s to look at the audits for the fund, they're spending every year about $300,000 in operating costs, which is more than the actual tax takes in every year. The reason why there's $10 million sitting is because the tax has been amassing roughly $300,000, $250,000 every year since 1988 without any distribution. So 28 times 250 is millions and millions of dollars sitting in an account. And at a time when the state, the city, the county is all broke, right, and we're looking for funds and relying on the private sector to fund what we believe the government should fund and our taxes should fund, and we're continuing to be taxed. There's new property taxes, new ancillary taxes, and there's this money sitting there, $10 million. That is tax funds from homeowners that is sitting there in a fund.
So wait, just have they been pulling that $300,000 of maintenance for the life of the program, or just in the last few years?
Yeah, it's a good question. I know that they have had a director, so the program's staffed by one program director who's a full-time employee that basically runs the program, makes upwards of $80,000 a year plus benefits, so it comes to about $100,000. Then they rent an office, they pay for office maintenance, office supplies, marketing, phone, internet, computer. So that totals about $300,000. That's been for at least the last 6 or 7 years that we've pulled the financials.
So it sounds like you're saying the amount of money, and almost like you can look at it as interest. I know it's not interest, but almost look at it as interest. They're just like $10 million. Oh, we made $300,000. We'll just pull $300,000 out of it.
Exactly. So the fund's not making money, though. Again, the fund's not operational. So your other question, I think, was who's responsible for this, and the challenge is that the law was created through Illinois state statute. So 2 years ago, we organized to change the state statute to allow the Board of Commissioners. There's a voluntary Board of Commissioners. They're elected, but they're all not paid. They're all community residents. They have to reside in the district and be nominated by a nonprofit. So they've been, the commissioners have been there for several years, at least the last 15 or so years, if not longer. And the commissioners have authority over the fund and the budget. We passed a state statute to allow them to repurpose the fund so they could take the money that's there, not use it for the intended original purpose, but instead provide home repair loans and grants to homeowners, as well as foreclosure prevention loans and grants to homeowners, so basically neighborhood stabilization efforts. And this law was passed 2 years ago. It was sponsored by Senator Mulrow and State Rep Martwick, who are the state rep and senator for the Northwest Home Equity Fund District. And when we talked to the director and the board recently, they had no idea that the law had passed 2 years ago.
Okay, so in your press conference, it actually relates to this. In your press conference, there was a demand for a change in leadership in the Northwest Equity Assurance Program office. So how can change be implemented, and what was the office outreach towards the community that you guys are helping out? I mean, have they even bothered to talk to people? I mean, you actually held a town hall, which was assisted by Our Revolution Illinois. Was there any kind of attempt on their part to do the same or try to speak to you guys or the community?
Yeah, great question. So the way that the fund works is a little convoluted. So it's a county tax assessed state kind of statute, but then the board is appointed and managed by the mayor's office. And so when we found that out after we changed the state statute, we've been trying for about 2 years to get a new board of commissioners, because they ultimately have the authority to change the administrative body, change the budget, and change the purpose of the program. So we've given the mayor's office of intergovernmental affairs, there's a staff person there who handles board appointments and commissions. We've given them a list of new commissioners that are all community residents that work in the field, that are much more diverse. All the commissioners are retired, white, all live in one specific part of the district. So what we did is went and met with all of our aldermen and asked for one representative from each ward that's a community resident, that's has some sort of housing background or experience, and that has grassroots experience. So we have community leaders, we have someone who did door knocking for a foreclosure prevention program, we have a realtor, we have someone who works for a nonprofit, we have a first-time home buyer. So we really wanted to get a group that we felt was representative of the community and experts of the area, and could really help manage this fund. And so those names have been given to the mayor's office. We have gotten support from our board, from our aldermen for the board, and the next step is that the mayor's office has to put the slate of commissioners on a city council meeting, and the entire city council has to vote for the new commissioners, and then they would basically take over the fund. And we're then asking those commissioners to remove the current administrative body, which is the director, close the current office, and have it be managed by an existing nonprofit, which is in the Northwest Home Equity Assurance District, whether that's the Northwest Side Housing Center, Spanish Coalition for Housing, or another housing nonprofit. We want them to go out to bid and find a contractor that can come in under budget, that can provide the loans, that has experience, and not just this one person, this one woman who again is making $100,000 plus a year to just sit there.
Right.
So, I mean, we've covered a lot of stuff emanating from the mayor's office, and it's just very refreshing to see that it's the exact same. It's just a bunch of old white guys sitting at a table when we really need a diverse group of people with different backgrounds, different experiences. On that, do you think that What do you see your chances are of passing this and getting it to work? What's been the mayor's reaction? Is he obviously has a huge amount of power in this.
Yeah, it's a great question. I think one of the challenges that we've faced is there's been a lot of staff turnover in the individuals that we've worked with from the mayor's office. So we started this about 2 years ago, and since then we've had 4 different contacts at the mayor's office that we've tried to bring the resumes to. So we finally gotten someone who is supposedly the right person, and I'm using the air quotes right because you never know if it's the right person. But we have talked with them. They told us the process. They told us the timeline. We're doing our due diligence to get our aldermen to sign support letters, which is what they say is needed to bring it to city council. We've asked them to bring it to the January city council meeting because there's not a December city council meeting. And so we're confident that that will happen. We've had a press conference. We've had media cover it, not just here, but WBEZ, Fox News, ABC, Univision. And so we're confident that if we keep pressure on the mayor's office with activities like this, with holding additional press conferences, with having additional conversations, we do have a meeting scheduled for December where we're going to be talking about this with the community. And if we continue to do activities like that, then we're hoping that it continues to be enough of a push, right, to the mayor's office in the city that they will get these new commissioners, because the way that we think about it is how many people lost their homes during the foreclosure crisis that could have saved them with this loan, or how many people took out a predatory loan or a home equity line of credit or refinanced for home repairs that then got put into a predatory loan that could have benefited from this program and from the fund that haven't. And so when we think about it like that, there's an urgency here that unfortunately we don't feel like others have, and so we're constantly trying to push this to happen sooner rather than later.
Now, Harlan's Media, we've covered similar stories like this before, especially in Pilsen and South Austin, to where gentrification is happening, people are being displaced, properties is going up, rents are going up, small businesses are suffering, and it seems that the large real estate developers are just moving in, wanting to kick people out. And when we talked to the people in Pilsen and South Austin, there was somewhat of a lack of interest from the Cook County officials who wanted to really help out and get involved. So this is actually refreshing to hear that there's some kind of support, but this is going to be a big uphill fight. I mean, City Hall and Cook County, it has a long sad history of corruption and indifference. So in this fight, have you or has anyone from your group reached out to the Illinois state legislator, the Illinois state senators and House representatives for support to help you guys push forward to really, getting some justice for the people, especially in the Northwest Side, and perhaps in other communities here in Chicago as well?
Yeah, great question. I think the support we've gotten is because we've kept the pressure on them, right? It hasn't been easy, and I think we would love to live in a world where we can mention something once or send an email or a letter or a call and something happens. Unfortunately, it's not the way things work, so I think 2 years of keeping the pressure up has built support and really putting it in common sense terms. We did reach out to State Rep Will Gazzardi to help us in the endeavor after we had the town hall that you were at with our Revolution Illinois Lawyers Committee for Better Housing and others. We asked him to help us kind of aid from the state side, because the state, though, again, the entire program was created through state statute, and though the state does have some control over it, they don't over the board and commission. But we did think if the state can intervene and help push the city, it would help. And so Will has done that and been really great, State Rep Gazzardi. Also, I'll be honest, when we weren't getting a response from the mayor's office, we put flyers out at the press conference with the name of the staffer from Intergovernmental Affairs and their number, and had all of our members, community leaders, activists, staff, call them. And I think it was after all of the calls that they received that they were finally willing to talk to us, and that's worked before. Again, it's a shame that we have to have 50 to 100 calls flood in inbox to get an answer, but that's the reality, and so we're willing to do that because it's that important for us.
Now, this is going to be rewinding back the clocks a little bit, but Harlan's Media was at the Chicago Teachers Union Center some time ago, and it was with Our Revolution Illinois, Northwest Side Housing Center, Pilsen Alliance, and a few other groups as well, and it was really talking about the Barrios tax plan. Now, of course, we all know that Mayor Emanuel got his budget passed, but I want to look at this at a two-part question. What is the impact of the Barrios tax plan, especially since he's the Cook County assessor currently right now? His seat will be up in 2018. And what's its impact? And also, on the same side, what was the impact of the Emanuel budget, especially for people who are struggling as rents and housing properties continue to go up?
Yeah, it's a great question, and Ernie from our team, who's our housing organizer, has been working as part of the coalition with Our Revolution, with Pilsen Alliance, with COCO, the Kenwood Oakland community organization, and others on a lift the ban around rent control and the property tax issue. I think what we're seeing, which is probably what's happening across the city, is twofold, right? We're seeing that properties that are owned by people of color in communities that are largely communities of color and low-income communities are often valued higher, and therefore they have a higher tax burden, right, than the property is actually worth. So their taxes are more than they should be, and so they're actually paying more than the standard percentage of property tax. And what we're seeing in wealthy areas is that the properties are undervalued, right? And so in wealthy white communities, you know, if the property should be $1 million, it's being valued at $700,000, so they're actually paying less taxes. And so we've seen that happen across the board, and so there's really been unequal taxation without representation or without any sort of policy put in place or any sort of regulatory control. I think what's interesting is I saw, and forgive me, I think someone said there's been 3 studies done, 3 independent studies about the tax system and kind of the tax equation and the tax assessment policy, and the county has just asked for a 4th. And I think someone said it perfectly when they said, we've had 3 studies, why do we need a 4th? We know that there's no...
I know the person said it. He was a guest on our show, Glenn Blanoff of Our Revolution, Illinois.
Yes.
He definitely went on the record saying, we don't need a 4th study.
Exactly, and so I think, again, why would we waste the money, time, and resources to publish another study to find the same finding as the other 3, which is that our tax system isn't working?
Well, I think that I would say that from, you know, city government would be, if you didn't do that, the next step would be doing something.
Right. Now, I do have a question, and perhaps maybe you can help out. Like, especially in the northwest side, gentrification is starting to slowly encroach in, and it's displacing people, and it's going to really affect a lot of people's lives. And usually, the people who are leading this are large real estate developers.
Mm-hmm.
And money in politics, it's crippling our democracy. Myself and Daniel have talked about money in politics, the impact of Citizens United and Cousins' decision, and how basically everyone, no matter their political affiliation, really wants to get money out of politics.
Mm-hmm.
Now, of course, here in the city of Chicago and Cook County, there's a lot of influence of money and how it can really change an elected official's opinion. So what I want to know is, what are the large corporate donors or large real estate developers that are gentrifying Chicago communities, especially on the northwest side, and how much, who are they, and really, how much influence do they have over our elected officials? Because it's going to be a one-sided, some can argue saying it's a one-sided fight, that you can't beat the corporations.
Mm. Yeah, maybe I'll go in reverse order. To the point that you can't beat the corporations, I think if I was to, and the Northwest Housing Center was to lose hope that we couldn't beat them, that I don't know that we keep doing this work, right? And so I know it's an uphill battle, and I think there's days where it feels insurmountable, but if we allowed that to be the framework from which we operated, then I don't think we would have hope to continue, right? It's really hard work that we all do, and we fight the good fight day in and day out, so I try really hard to remain hopeful and have some possibility of hope. Otherwise, I think it makes this work unbearable. So that's point 1. Point 2, Belmont Cragen is just west of Logan Square, and so what we've seen is that we haven't gentrified yet in Belmont Cragen. I think Logan Square has turned. I think Hermosa and Avondale are starting to gentrify now, and Belmont Cragen will be next. So we don't have the developers yet, especially the larger corporations, LLCs, or entities that are buying up properties. I think what we saw in Logan Square is it happens hard and fast, right? So like Mark Fishman is someone that I know and a name that I know, and he started buying properties before, again, air quotes, before gentrification, right? Before the visible signs of it, before the bars open, before the restaurants open, the gyms, the yoga studios, whatever it may be, before Milwaukee Avenue's transformed. He owned most of that, right? And what he did was buy cheap, quick, and displace people, right? He had the cash reserves, had the cash wherewithal to buy these properties cash, hold them, kick people out of them, and then sell them at a higher price to tenants, that would then open bars, restaurants, again, studios, build new luxury high-rises. And then that was combined with a lack of policy to enforce affordable housing, right? So there were the existing structures that were bought and flipped. Then there were new structures that were built, none of which focused on affordable housing, right? And so the challenge is right now under the ARO, the Affordable Rent Ordinance, that 10% of new construction has to be affordable, and developers can buy out of that. And what we've seen in our community and on the Northwest side is most developers buy out of that. And that money then goes into a fund to further build affordable housing, which sounds great, but there's no geographic limits on where that affordable housing is built, so it's built on the south side. So that's great, right? The
I
south
see.
side continues to get new affordable housing, which is great, and everyone needs affordable housing. But they're concentrating poverty, right, and building cheap on the south side where it's, costs $10,000 to build.
And just for the record, I've actually seen some neighborhoods on the south side that are slowly becoming gentrified. Pilsen is really close to where I'm at, and I'm seeing it even happen in my neighborhood
Sure.
to where it's like, I've never seen this stuff here, something's developing, something new here. It's never happened before, and it's kind of shocking to see it. It's slowly encroaching. It's going to take some time, especially on the south side, but it's going to get there.
Yeah, Inglewood, right, has the Whole Foods and Starbucks now, and
Yeah.
Pilsen, I would say it's going Canary Island or Bronzeville. It's
Right.
happening throughout the city, but I think there's still pockets where it's cheap, and that's where they're building affordable housing. And so what it's doing is basically disincentivizing developers from building affordable housing in wealthier areas and concentrating poverty in poorer areas. Meanwhile, the developer looks good because they're paying a fee to this fund, and they're not building affordable housing. So we're part of a zoning committee with the 31st Ward Alderman, Millie Santiago, Logan Square Neighborhood Association, and Hermosa Neighborhood Association, and the Avondale Neighborhood Association. And we've set up a zoning committee that any proposed zoning change for the 31st Ward has to go through the zoning committee, which has a representative from the organization and the community. So our organization's Director of Community Development, Julio Rodriguez, and a community resident, Juan Campensano, are our representatives for that committee, and they have voice to say, hey, this deal doesn't look right, we need a community meeting, or we don't support this and we're not gonna vote for the change in zoning or the setbacks or whatever. Because the reality is developers are funding the campaigns of our aldermen, right? And it's not just developers, it's any wealthy corporations or for-profits. They're funding these campaigns. And so the aldermen are at the hold of these developers, right, of these wealthy corporations. And so we struggle with trying to combat that. And so for us, we use our people power to push back and say, this isn't what the people want, and try and push back against those developers.
Well, then that's a good note to end it on. Listen, James, I think a lot of our listeners, we always ask them what can they do to help or if they want to get involved. So one, where can they find your group on social media if they want to volunteer, help out, donate some of their time? Where can they find you guys on social media? What's your website?
Yeah, thank you. That'd be great. So our website is www.nwshc.org or www.northwestsidehousingcenter, our initials.org. We're also on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. It's NWSHC on both Twitter and Instagram. And then on Facebook, if you just take Northwest Side Housing Center, we pop up. We're active on all social media. Our email, if you want to shoot us an email, is just info@nwshc.org. And our phone number, if you're old school and still use a phone and call, is 773-283-3888.
Oh, that's a good note to end on, James. Thank you so much for joining Heartlands Media. And to all our listeners and people watching us on Facebook Live, if you support independent media, Heartlands Media has a Patreon account. Please, if you support independent media, your donation, your support helps us produce more exclusive content, allows us to have more guests, allows us to really get the word out, because Chicago, Illinois needs an independent media outlet, and Heartlands Media can be it. If you're interested in checking out some of our previous work, go on our Facebook page, check out our YouTube channel, follow us on Twitter. You guys are our main heart and backbone and soul to Heartlands Media. So let's all do what we can to build a better future. Listen to us every Saturday from 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. Central Standard Time on Q4 Radio. Peace, everyone.
You're watching Hard Lens Media.